Monday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns celebrating a improbable win over the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. How improbable? Why do I say improbable? Take a look at this. Ravens are only the third team in NFL history to lose a game despite holding 4 separate leads of 14-plus points in the game. First to do so in almost 20 years. You see 2003, the last time to do it. Kevin Stefanski addressing his team in the locker room after a come-from-behind win.
Hey, which team was going to play harder, longer? That question's answered. I know the men in this room. I know what you're about. I know we're about that fight. Right? We got down, we put ourselves in a hole. This team's going to fight. That's what we do. That's what we do. I'm so proud of everybody in this room. You know why? Because what do we do when it got hard? Got a little bit tighter. Hey, grab a hand, grab an arm, grab a piece. We need it. We need everybody in here, fellas. Okay, now that's a big one. You know why? Because it was the one that they had today. Guess what? Next one's the biggest game of your life. That's how it works. That's how it works in this league, okay? So I'm proud of you guys. I'm proud of the fight in this team. And I know this. Something's in our way next week. Something's in our next week. I don't know who we're playing. They'll tell me tomorrow, okay? But I appreciate how you guys fight. Now, we're coming in tomorrow, okay, because we can learn from this. Hey, most important thing there is, team on 3. 1, 2, 3.
With that, let's welcome in Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle, Telegram, as well as BrownZone.com. And Scott, to say they were beat up at the end of that game might be an understatement. When you take everything into account, that's a hell of a win.
Oh my gosh, it is. But first, how about when Kevin Stefanski says, "Grab a hand," and Antonio looks to grab somebody's hand? Yeah, it was a big win. I mean, you know, it's still really early in the season to draw any definitive conclusions. But you know, if they lose, they're 5-4. The Ravens are 8-2. You're probably out of the division race, or pretty close to being out of it. Now you're right in the thick of it, and if things go the way the Browns want them to over the weekend, they could be leading the AFC North. So it's huge from that perspective. It's huge from the resilience that they showed again to fight back from all those 14-point deficits like they're shown up there. I think the last time the Browns came back from a fourth quarter 14-point deficit was in Tennessee in 2014. You know, and they've done it all year. They've shown real grit, fighting through the injuries. You got Deshaun Watson goes 14 for 14 in the second half with a huge scramble, leads the winning touchdown drive. So there's a lot there that I think spoke a lot to this team, and on defense too, right? Defense and special teams, like all across the board, they had winning performances.
So Deshaun Watson talked about the importance of that win, kind of a statement win, if you will.
It was a big win on the road against a very, very great team. You know, one of the top teams in the league, one of the best defenses in the league in their place. You know, and I think it was overall a great opportunity, not just for me, but the whole offense, but this team too. You know, slow start in the first half, self-inflicted mistakes. You know, give the Ravens credit; they capitalized on it. But the second half, we didn't back down, and we came out on fire, and we put offensively put a big drive on, starting with the O-line, running behind them, and then getting the ball to the receivers and let them catch and run. So it was definitely a big moment for us, and we just got to keep going.
And Scott, that regardless of what happened in the first half, that fourth quarter drive is the reason you pay him $230 million and you trade 3 draft picks, because he made plays when they needed to be made to go win a game. That's what you want in a franchise quarterback.
There's no question. We've talked about it a million times, right? The season, games in the season come down to things like that, right? You're going to be in a bunch of close games. Do you get it done? Does your quarterback make a play? Does your kicker make a kick? Does your defense get a stop, right? All those things factor into the difference between 10-7 and 7-10, or whatever numbers you want to throw in there. So, for Watson to do that, and he had, the perfect second half from a statistical standpoint. Had the fumble on that strip sack that luckily Wyatt Teller recovered for the Browns. But, doesn't miss a throw, big scramble, 2-point conversion run. did everything he needed him to. And it really, once you got to the second half, they were all big moments, right? Because they're trailing, you can't afford to give away possessions. And, they had 2 touchdown drives and a field goal drive in the second half, right? So they did everything they needed to do with the ball on offense, and that starts with your quarterback. And they weren't all great situations, right? They had a false start to begin that last drive. There was a strip sack, like I mentioned, so they're, I think, 2nd and 19, and he throws a dart to Amari Cooper on a seam, with kind of double coverage, but he fits it in there. It's a big-time throw. He made a big-time throw, I want to say, in the second quarter. Maybe it was earlier in the fourth quarter. I know they were going that direction, to Elijah Moore, a deep comeback. So he made some big-time throws, and then that scramble. Like, couldn't have been a better time for that scramble. He makes a couple of guys miss, gets them where now they're in field goal range. So, yeah, it was a big moment for Watson, and I think if you're, it's not perfect, right? The whole game wasn't perfect. He still might be slow going through some reads early, whatever. But if you go through the last 3 games where he started and finished, it's really encouraging because they've been 3 good games in a row.
Well, okay, so we'll do exactly that. This is more for you, Cleveland. So here you look at it. The last 3, take out that Colts. This doesn't factor in the Colts thing. So 66 of 97. That's just under 70%. 721 yards. It's got the 5 touchdowns, just 1 pick, 75 yards. You see he's 3-0. 29 points is what they are putting up. With this defense, if the offense puts up 29 points, I like my chances of winning no matter who's on the other side of the field.
Yeah, I agree. And there's so many struggles for Watson. And I'm not, I tend to be hesitant. I'm not ready to declare him back. I know, that's kind of a narrative out there. And maybe he is. And there's certainly signs that he is getting back. But to me, that's the most important part. That it looks so much better than it did even week 1, week 2, right? Now, there were extenuating circumstances, but there were issues weeks 1 and week 2. Last year, right? You go back to the 6 games that he started off after the suspension. There were a couple of moments, but nothing that made you think, yeah, this guy's worth $230 million guaranteed. And you're starting to see it. I'm not ready to put him with even Lamar Jackson. I know he beat Lamar Jackson, but he's done it longer, more consistently this year. Joe Burrow, right? Like, you picked elite quarterbacks, and I'm not ready to put Watson there yet. But he probably doesn't have to be that guy with this team and with this defense and this special teams. He just has to limit the turnovers and make those critical handful of plays a game. And I think that's what we saw really the last 2 weeks.
All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time today.
Hi, this is Rico. I just want to say I'm so proud of this team. This was the game that we all needed to get to prove that we are no longer the little brother. Watson earned his keep for this game. He drove down the field with the game on the line and gave Hopkins a chance to kick the game winner. I don't care about his stats. We got him for that sole purpose, to drive down the field and get his team a W. And can we please give Stefanski a chance to be a great coach? He had his team fully prepared, went up into Baltimore, and got the dub by any means necessary. I'm so pumped and so excited for this team, man. I love this team. And Pittsburgh, you better be ready, because the dog pound coming. Root, root.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, it's a week-to-week. One thing that we've learned week to week, but I tend to agree. Kevin Stefanski has had a lot of things to coach around. You coach around injuries and those. He's had a lot to coach around. He's done a pretty nice job.
I think he's done a great job, Dave. I really do. And I think I'm going to try to write it tomorrow. Just how well I think he's done. And, that's a tough place to go in and win. Not many Browns coaches have done that. You mentioned everything he's had to deal with. He lost his starting quarterback for 4 games. He still won 2 of them. Probably should have won 3 of them. We can argue about the call that might have cost him that 3rd win. But if you look at just body of work, not only this season, I think throughout his tenure, but especially this season, specifically this season, I think Stefanski's done a really good job managing the team, calling the game, right? The play calls gives them a chance to win, right? You put that stat up about the points the last few games. You can't just leave the offense or the play caller out of that equation, right? He's certainly part of it. And they scored points without Watson in there. And they're figuring out a way to run the ball without Nick Chubb and without their, top 3 tackles. So at some point, I think Stefanski deserves credit for that. He should get credit for that. I think the messaging he has, you see the locker room speech, right? And he talks about, we were going to play harder and longer than the Ravens. Well, Myles Garrett was kind of parroting that same thing, and that means that message got through. And I've seen multiple examples of that throughout the season where the way Stefanski talks, the players are listening and then repeating that to the media, and I think that's a good sign.
So this is from Jake Trotter, ESPN's FBI Football Power Index. Ravens, 89.1% chance of making the playoffs, 49% chance of winning the division. Browns up to 78.3 and almost 30% chance to win the division. You see the Steelers and the Bengals there. Let me ask you this, and I know you've gotten this in your mailbag. I think I know what you're going to say. Is the AFC North the best division in football?
It's not close.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I started going through, I knew they were, right? 4 teams with winning records. Heading into yesterday, it was, everybody was at least 2 games above 500. Obviously, the Bengals lost. All 4 were positioned to be in the playoffs, and I think that's still the case. So you have that part of it. But to me, it goes beyond that. I think the coaches are fantastic, right? To me, John Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin might be 2-3 on the list of coaches that I would pick behind Andy Reid. I think Kevin Stefanski, we just talked about him, I think he's underrated. Zach Taylor, I'm not sure if he's a great coach, but he's been to a Super Bowl and another AFC title game. Look at the quarterbacks. Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, right? 3 out of 4. We don't know about Kenny Pickett. And then you could just compare them to the other divisions, right? Who's next? I would probably say the NFC East. I think Philly and Dallas are both Super Bowl contenders. Then there's a drop-off to Washington, and then the Giants are pitiful. AFC East, Miami and Buffalo are legit. Then you got Zach Wilson who's dragging down the Jets, and the Patriots are bad, right? So the AFC North just doesn't have a bad team. And we see that 6 weeks of the year, and then the other weeks when you're watching the other division matchups.
Yeah, and it figures into everything because you got to play those 2 teams twice. There is not a breather. Browns are getting ready for the Steelers, and the Steelers are finding a way to just win football games. It hasn't looked pretty, but they're finding a way to be 1-0 when they need to be. Scott Patrick and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Take a little bit deeper dive into some of the offensive numbers. Sports4CLE, right back. Stay with us.
An Ohio lottery machine. The holiday scratch-offs are worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Non-winning tickets have a second chance. Is that Marion Bright? The first ever $1 million holiday game! No. You can get them now?
I'm gonna go ask if I can play.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle Telegram, as well as BrownZone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yeah, this is Bernard from New Philadelphia, Ohio. I'll be honest with you. The truth is, I was a moron and not listening. Kevin Stefanski, Deshaun Watson has earned my respect today. That was one hell of a game they played. Go Browns, baby.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Scott, it's like the old SEC coach, Southern AD. Coach and quarterback, we're with you, win or tie.
Right? It's really, and I get it.
Yeah, I
do
do
too. For a long time. But that's how it works, right?
Yep.
Like 2 weeks, whatever it was. Pick a day where Stefanski gets just ripped. Or Watson, right? And that's the way it works. And, it's tough to say, hey, we got to wait till everything plays out because, nobody wants to do that. But at some point, you do have to let some things play out.
Yeah, and you know what? Good for them that they were able to do that. So take a look at Deshaun Watson. We alluded to this. Completion-wise, a perfect second half. 14 of 14, 134 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. Watson talked about kind of what changed in that second half.
It's about us. It's not one individual. It's not the quarterback. It's not the safety. It's about us. It's a team game, and we all came together in that second half. And when we came in this locker room, the guys came in and said, let's flush it. It's a new 30-minute, and, you know, we got to leave everything out there on the field. And we got to make sure that we take it one play at a time. We can't press and try to do anything more than that. And I think that's where it actually started, was just, you know, not everyone pressing. We just took it one play at a time. And I think we got caught up in the first half trying to press, trying to get everything back when we were down 14. So we settled down and we focused on that.
And Scott, when you take it in the context of how the game played out, the fact that they came back and beat Ravens, a really good football team. It makes it even that much more impressive. It was against them in their stadium.
Yeah, that's a really tough place to play. I've covered a bunch of games there. It's loud, it's intimidating, and it was yesterday. And for, you know, to get down that as quickly as they did, to get down 14 and then to come back, says a lot about them. And, you know, I think it also speaks to their mentality. You know, I know fans, right? I'm on those text chains, and you know, everybody's, oh my gosh, 14-0, I'm going to go rake the leaves. Like, I got 6 guys telling me the same thing. The players don't think like that. The coaches don't think like that, at least on a good team, at least on a mentally strong team. And I think the Browns have proven that they're that type of team. You don't roll over. You go, okay, well, we got to go do it again. You know, we got to go make up for that, climb out of that hole. And, you know, Watson admitted that there was a little bit of, this happened again, because it happened, you know, the Pittsburgh pick six to start that game. But you can have that realization, that moment of, oh my gosh, you just can't let it linger. And they certainly did not let it linger.
All right, so Brian Baldinger, former offensive lineman, going to analyze Jerome Ford's run in the fourth quarter that led to the game-winning field goal. Take a look.
This Jerome Ford went over 100 yards for the second time this season. No run was more important than this, with 1:24 to go. You get power with Petonio on the pull, Wyatt Teller, Hudson, everybody getting their block. Nobody getting the legs of Ford. Philly's got the tush push, but the Browns have their own version. Wyatt Teller, Posick, Hudson, let everybody push it. Elijah Moore, get in there, Petonio, you're late to the party. This is Cleveland Browns football. 12 stinking yards to get themselves in field goal range for the game winner. Oh, that feels good. How good does it feel? Yes, give me some more. Give me some more of it. Is he down yet? Is he down?
The other thing you saw at the top of that, Cedric Tillman was blocking downfield, and I believe I saw he blocked really well, and I think he had the second highest run grade blocking for the Browns. Again, I know PFF, you can, whatever you say about him, he was effective blocking in the run game. That's a huge thing for a young receiver.
It is, and that's one of the things they're asking him to do without Donovan Peoples-Jones, because Donovan Peoples-Jones was good in the run game, and they relied on him. I mean, they go heavy with the one wideout. A lot of times that wideout needs a block. So I think that's important for a young guy, like you mentioned. And that play was just cool. You know, Kevin Stefanski doesn't show a ton of emotion, but just for him to call that his favorite play of the game, I think tells you how cool that play was. And not only from an important standpoint, right, because that put him in not just field goal range, but a much more manageable field goal for Dustin Hopkins. But it's all 11 guys. It's all of it. You know, Joel Bitonio after the game said, he goes, yeah, I saw it. I go, you know, he figured they would stop it, and then it wasn't stopped. He goes, I better get in there, because you don't want to be the one guy when they watch film that's not in the pile.
Jerome Ford was asked about that play today. Take a listen to his description.
Pretty much a run play, power play, and we got up to the second level and kind of got to a stalemate, and all I could think was hold on to the ball and keep my feet turning, and then out of nowhere I felt a push, and I felt a bigger push, and I'm just in a pile. The Ravens in there ripping at the ball. I'm just like, hold on to the ball, and it's like I'm holding on, and I'm like, is the play gonna be over? Like, they still pushing? And you know, eventually we went down, and you see it on film, and it's like, man, that was a real great play.
Scott, two things. Jerome Ford's getting a little overlooked. He had a really nice game against that. But that's exactly what you want a young running back to be thinking when that's going on. I better hold on to the ball.
Yeah, right? I mean, he had, if it was the opener, one game earlier this year, he had a fumble, was really loose with the ball. I think it was the opener. He needs to be better, and I don't, Browns fans can knock on wood. I don't think he's had an issue since then. So that's the right mindset. And again, it's just the cool play. It's everybody involved. And, Ford, career high yardage. He's been really good. Fought through that high ankle. Didn't miss any time with the high ankle sprain, which is pretty remarkable. And again, they're doing it without Nick Chubb, right? And it speaks to everybody involved that they're able to run like they are without Nick Chubb.
So here is some good news just kind of developing. Jeremy Fowler tweets, Brown's source tells him cornerback Denzel Ward's injury from Sunday, a minor neck strain, going to be fine, which is good news. Again, you can say, well, I think Ronnie Stanley should have gotten a penalty for that. He was leading with his head, and he hit him in the back of the neck. Just my thought on that play.
No, I agree. And I had somebody kind of confirm that Jeremy Fowler report that he's expected to be good. So, who knows if that means he has to miss any time. But if it's not serious, that's hugely important. We know Denzel Ward's having a great year. Might be the second best player on that defense. But I'm with you. And I didn't see the play. I didn't see that part live when Stanley hit him. But it's helmet to helmet. It's helmet in the side of the helmet. They're lucky that Denzel Ward, who's got the history of concussions, did not have a concussion, right? So you have that aspect of it. But the neck strain keeps him out of the game, out of the rest of the game. You lose a big player. I thought he should have been penalized. Kevin Stefanski wouldn't go there, but he said they did turn it into the league. And I think I would fully expect Stanley to get a big fine for that.
Yeah, I would too. They need to do something. The NFL needs to do something where guys are leading with their helmet. They need to put an end to that. That's just not good. Scott Petrick and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out on the other side of the break. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talk a little bit about the Browns' defense. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrick, Browns beat reporter from the Elyria Chronicle, Telegram, BrownZone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
This is Jim from Rochester. I was wrong. I'll be one to say it. I have to admit that Mr. Stefanski called a much better game the second half, and our defense is just awesome, period. Okay, I apologize. Once again, go Browns. See ya.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Scott, that is a very vocal detractor who Kevin Stefanski has won over, at least for the week.
Yeah, right. It was interesting. After the game, Watson talked about the second half. He thought that they didn't try to make up. He thought they were pressing in the first half. That's what he said, and maybe even some of the play calls. And then he thought in the second half, they kind of took more one play at a time. They had that really long drive, right? The 17-play drive. It took more than 10 minutes. Stefanski said he didn't quite agree because he knows what Watson was saying and understands it. He said, sometimes you have to take some deep shots. We took some deep shots early. They didn't hit. Again, this is Kevin Stefanski just in general. I think he does a good job balancing, okay, you're going to spread it out a little bit. You're going to take some shots. You got to throw it in this league. And then they also go jumbo, right? They got Nick Harris playing fullback for whatever it is, 7 or 9 snaps a game. They had Leroy Watson, the new tackle, coming in, and he played a couple as that extra tight end. They're not afraid to mix and match, go 3 tight ends. So he's got all of that, and they've had some success using all those different formations. And I think that speaks to Stefanski's adaptability and creativity as a coach and play caller.
Without question. All right, we're going to do Brian Baldinger again, former NFL offensive lineman. This time he's analyzing the Browns' pass rush against Lamar Jackson.
Jim Schwartz changed up the way that he rushed right here. Like, you watch this long limbo right here. Coming behind Za'Darius and Elliott, and here goes Okoronkwo, big O right there. All they want to do is just keep Lamar boxed up to force these kind of errant throws. All right? Had a bunch of them in the day. Then you get this right here. Like, watch, like, Big O just getting Za'Darius lined up. Get over there, man. Get over there. All right? We got a different way that we're rushing. I'm helping you out. You're going to get home, bro. Here we go. Lamar stepping up right into the teeth of the dog pound. Down goes Lamar. The front's winning. How about Delpit coming off here? He can't believe he didn't get this sack. He's coming. He beat Ricard right here. He got a great shot at Lamar. But he set him up for Myles Garrett. All right, and then on the next play, you get this, a blitz zero look. On 3rd and long, they drop out, but here comes Myles right here, beating the right tackle. Oh, yeah, he would put Lamar into his graveyard. You bet he would. And then you get this. How about Za'Darius right here, just flushing Lamar late in the game, running over the right tackle. He was hustling, forcing another errant throw. And then to finish it off right here, Za'Darius and Myles Garrett. Watch the effort right here of these two on the twist stunt. Lamar gets out. How far is he going to go? Za'Darius gets him by the shoelace. Myles comes from miles away and finishes him.
And Scott, that's very interesting. You kind of figured Jim Schwartz would tweak it. There's still a lot of pressure, but it was a little bit more controlled and designed.
Yeah, and, you know, they have to balance that aggression a little bit, right, against Lamar. You can't just, you know, run 4 guys straight up the field and leave a huge hole, especially with the Browns as much man-to-man coverage as they play, right? You get guys with their backs to Lamar, and that could lead to a huge run. And Lamar had a couple of those in week 4, I thought. And yesterday they didn't really have many. They just do a good job. And their front is, I think it's disciplined, it's talented, and it's more than just Myles Garrett now, right? He mentioned Obo, he mentioned Zadarius Smith, you got Dalvin Tomlinson, Jordan Elliott's playing as well as he ever has. Maurice Hurst, the second, is coming off the bench playing well. Shelby Harris makes a play here and there. They just have guys, and Jim Schwartz is doing a good job. I don't think it's interesting. I was looking at the snap counts. Myles Garrett played a ton of snaps yesterday. Now, they were only on the field for 54, which is not a lot, but I think he played 51 or 52 of them. And then I'm going to ask Jim Schwartz about that later in the week, because Schwartz doesn't, I think, ideally does not want him to play that much. But in some games, in some situations, some quarterbacks, you got to ride your best guys.
So I know this is from your mailbag as well. Question was, what's going on with Siaka Ika? Was he drafted as a developmental player, or has he been a disappointment?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. You know, you draft rookies. The Browns are really adamant that it's not about 1 year with the rookie, right? It's a long-term thing. You draft a guy, you do want to develop them. We've seen that they're not willing to give up on guys early, right? But draft a guy in the 3rd round, there are expectations that he contributes as a rookie. So I think it's fair to say it's disappointing. The guy, I mean, he's been inactive every game. Having said that, all those guys I mentioned a second ago, that's why he's not on the field, because he's not as good as Tomlinson or Elliott or Hurst or Shelby Harris. So, I mean, that's the reason. And if somebody got hurt and you needed to put him out there, you would hope that he'd be able to step in and, you know, fill that role. You know, the only other maybe knock on Ika would be, you know, they added Shelby Harris kind of late, right? Camp had already started. So maybe they saw that he wasn't ready to fill that role that they needed him to. And that's why they went and got Harris. Although Harris is, you know, a different body type. I think he's more of a leaner pass rusher than Ika is.
Again, this one from your mailbag. Who do you think has a chance to be first-time Pro Bowlers for the Browns?
Yeah, I like that question because I think there's multiple guys. Martin Emerson Jr., the corner. I didn't think he played great yesterday. I thought he got off to a rough start, but then I thought he played better in the second half. At least I didn't notice him, which is a good sign. I thought the entire defense played better. He gave up a couple catches early to Zay Flowers, which is a tough matchup. Flowers is small and quick, and Emerson's bigger and longer. You know, he looks kind of silly on that one Keaton run, you know, Keaton Mitchell, where he bounced outside, and it was a bad angle for him. And Grant Delpit, didn't take took a good angle, but he made a move and Delpit had no chance. But I think overall, Emerson has played really well this year, following up a really strong rookie season. Delpit, I think, deserves consideration. He's been active all year. You showed him blitzing. He got his hands on some balls early in the year with turnovers. Dalvin Tomlinson has never been to a Pro Bowl. And for him, I think he's, outside of Jim Schwartz, I think he's been the outsider who's had the biggest influence or impact on this transformation of the defense. So if the Browns continue to win games and look like they're going to the playoffs and have the number one defense in the league, you should have a bunch of guys, and I think Tomlinson would be high on that list. And then David Njoku, it feels like he's going to go one of these days.
Yeah, I would. Those guys were the ones that come to mind without question. This is from ESPN.com. Question for each team after Week 10. Can the Browns win the AFC North? They say absolutely. Browns are 6-3, only a half game back of the Ravens. Cleveland has a far more favorable schedule remaining. The way their defense is playing, the way their offensive line is blocking, and the way Deshaun Watson is finally coming on bodes well moving forward. Again, all those things hard to argue with, but got to do it every week.
Right. If you lose to Pittsburgh on Sunday, all of a sudden it's okay. They got two teams ahead of them in the division, right? So you got swept by the Steelers, so you lose that tiebreaker. So they got to keep winning games. But, if you get to 11 wins, could that be enough? And I haven't crunched every schedule, and it's probably silly to do that anyway, because I think it's going to be a win doesn't mean it's going to be a win. But they certainly have a chance, especially after that win yesterday, right? I mean, they're a half a game behind the first place. So that gives them a chance. The schedule's not that hard coming home, at least from what the numbers say and what the win-losses say. So wins and losses say. So, yeah, I certainly think they have a chance. And, of all the crazy Brown stats that there are since they come back, I think what might be craziest to me is they've never won the AFC North. It was founded in 2002, and they've never won their own division. So it's probably about time for that to change.
Yeah, 89 is the last time they won the division. I was covering the team as a television beat reporter at that point in time. Wow. That's how long ago that was.
Yeah, I was a sophomore in high school.
Scott Petrak and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out on the side of the break. We'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We'll take a look at the strength of schedule remaining for all of the AFC North teams as well. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter for the Elyria Chronicle, Telegram, as well as BrownZone.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
This is Buddy from Baltimore, and yes, I was there, head-to-toe Browns gear, but I want to talk about one of the lesser-known guys, Mike Ford Jr. He rocked Lamar something serious on a clean hit at the sideline and then picked him off one play later. Then we got Njoku. He showed a glimpse of exactly what he can do. Miles was Miles. What else can you say? He's a one of a kind. And then Deshaun, 14 for 14 in the second half, and he willed this team to win. He showed what kind of a leader he was. And lastly, we have Mr. Ford, 109 yards. What a team win. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Scott, he alluded to Mike Ford, and there were a number of guys. I mean, Jerron Christian, we didn't hear his name, and he was starting at left tackle. That means he played really well. Ford, and I mean, everybody was getting banged up. And again, that's a sign of good coaching when you can perform with your second, third, fourth guys.
There's no doubt about it. It's a sign of good coaching. I think you have to give the front office some credit for having a deep enough roster that guys can come off the bench and fill in. Christian only got signed to the practice squad on Halloween. He got signed to the active roster last Tuesday, and he plays at left tackle for you. And I don't think he was perfect, but he was good enough. And if DeJuan Jones comes back this week at right tackle, which we don't know if he will, I wouldn't be surprised if they keep Christian at left tackle and Hudson goes back to being the swing guy off the bench and that extra lineman. I don't know that. I just wouldn't be surprised by it. And Mike Ford, right? Mike Ford gets the big hit of Lamar, picks him off on the next play. Has been really good on special teams all year. But he's probably your fifth corner, right? You got Ward, Emerson, Newsome, Cam Mitchell, and then Ford. And so, he's your fifth guy, and he comes in and he plays valuable minutes. Not perfect, right? He gives up the slant touchdown to OBJ. But that's going to happen. You trust your guys in man-to-man. And that's what kind of interests me, Dave, is, you're watching the game and you think, oh, my gosh, they're down to fifth corner. They're down to fourth and fifth tackles. And you think, man, how can they do it? Or how can they trust these guys? They had DeAnthony Bell playing at safety for a while because they had injuries at safety. And yet the coaches have no choice but to trust them. And they practice with them. They see him all the time. And they say, hey, we're not going to change up too much, right? Maybe you tweak something here or there, but you just got to trust your guys. And when they deliver for you, I think it's a great message for everybody in the team.
All right, so this is strength of schedule for the AFC North the rest of the way based on DVOA of opponents. DVOA measures a team's efficiency by comparing success every single play to a league average based on situation and opponent. So it's one of those advanced analytics metrics. Bengals have the hardest schedule. Ravens have the second. That is in the NFL. Steelers have the 9th, and the Browns have the 24th toughest. Also important to note, Bengals and Ravens play each other Thursday on a short week. And if the Bengals are now a game behind everybody, they need that. They get that. That's how the Browns could end up in first place in the North.
Yeah, and they're dealing with some injuries, but, who knows? Thursday night, I'm sure the Ravens will have some injuries they're dealing with too. So that's going to be a good one to watch. Obviously, a ton of implications, right, for the Browns and for the AFC North. It's interesting that strength of schedule. Like I said, I do think it's meaningful. You can't just go by that completely. But it's going to be difficult for the Bengals to get back in this with that schedule and jump everybody in the division. It's going to be difficult with the Ravens with that schedule to stay in front of everybody in the division. So, if the Browns handle their business, and I don't know what that number is, like I said earlier, but if they keep winning games, they're going to be in position at the end. And maybe, who knows, there's week 18 in Cincinnati for the division. It could be, or it might not matter because everything's figured out by then.
All right. Up next, Steelers at home. I don't know about you, but I look at the Steelers roster, and I have no idea how they're 6-3 on the year. They just keep winning. They find a way to win.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I think it starts with Mike Tomlin's on that roster somewhere. T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward. But it's limited, right? George Pickens might be their best offensive player, and he's not getting the ball, and he's unhappy. So at least he was going into yesterday. I haven't gone into too much detail on yesterday's game, but it's amazing. They've been outgained in every game, yet they're 6-3. Like, that's remarkable. Part of me says that string's got to run out. It catches up to you. Their point differential, they're losing. They have a negative point differential. That usually is a pretty good sign of how good you are as a team. But it certainly means you can't take the Browns for granted, or if the Browns can't take them for granted. The line's only 3.5 or 4. I thought it might be bigger. They just keep winning games, and that's certainly a credit to them. And all you had to do is, if you're the Browns or Browns fans, go back to week 2. Browns should have won that game, and they did.
Well, take a look. Here's some of the things that you're talking about. So they've been outgained in every game all season. They've run fewer plays than their opponent all season. Their point differential is a negative 26, and yet they're 6-3. If you think back to that, the game week 2, one of the keys to this is you can't give them – that offense struggles. Unlike the Ravens, they struggle. You can't give them points and you can't give them extra possessions.
No, that's exactly right. You got to hang on to the ball. And we saw that in week 2. It was, obviously blatant. The Browns' defense is not on the field very often. We've seen that all year long. If the Steelers' offense isn't on the field all that often, it's tough to score points, right? Unless you hand them points. So that's got to be job number one. And I know you need to throw the ball. I know, obviously they're not going to just run it up the middle all day long. But I would not be stunned to see Kevin Stefanski play a field position game and say, hey, my defense is not going to give up more than, 13 points. We'll figure out a way to get this 14 or 17 without really getting risky.
Yeah, the other thing is Najee Harris and Jalen, the error of the Warren have started to run the ball. They're finally, the Steelers are finally starting to run the ball, which takes a little bit of the pressure off Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, I mean, Warren's a good back. He's electric. Najee feels like it takes him a while to get going. Mm-hmm. I think Warren scares you a little more as a defense. Pickett threw for 125 yesterday, and they won the game. So, to me, it looks like the Browns should win this game. I think it should be almost a comfortable win. But all the things we're talking about are why I hesitate, right? To hesitate to say that because the Steelers can make you look foolish when you take them for granted.
Scott Petrak, Browns beat reporter from the Elyria Chronicle Telegram as well as BrownsZone.com. As always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Scott.
Hey, thanks, Dave.
Scott Petrak, make sure you check him out. BrownsZone.com on the internet. Really good Brown stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
An Ohio lottery machine. The holiday scratch-offs are worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Non-winning tickets have a second chance. Is that Marion Bright? The first ever $1 million holiday game! You can get them now?
I'm gonna go ask if I can play.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. Howard from Marin County. I would like to congratulate Bill Callahan and doctoring up the O-line, it was incredible. Jim Schwartz on the defense, incredible. Miles, the superstar. I also would like to apologize for all the times I said bad things about Kevin Stefanski and AB. Kevin Stefanski clearly outcoached John Harbaugh, and AB has acquired some excellent players. And last but not least, I think Deshaun Watson was excellent, and I hope we can keep this up and we can go and actually I can live to see the Browns play in the Super Bowl. Thank you so much. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Jeff, it was that kind of game. People that have been giving Kevin Stefanski, Deshaun Watson, and Andrew Berry grief are saying, okay, that was good.
Well, the Browns, though, I mean, a game like this is something they were built for, though. You got to keep in mind, the Browns' last 5 games, 4 of them, the games have gone down to last second. The San Francisco game, obviously the Indianapolis Colt game, the Seattle game. Last week, the Browns obviously got a laugher. But this week, again, another game that went 60 minutes and went to the mark. I'm glad people are maybe finally starting to buy in to Coach Stefanski and Andrew Berry. I got news for you. They were doing this all along. This team was 5-3 and has already played 3 quarterbacks this season. They're now finally getting what they believe is their future signal caller for generations to come. He's obviously had his last 3 complete starts have been fantastic for this team. 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, completion percentage of almost 69%. The product is real right now. The product is believable. And if you had any doubts, you had any concerns, just look at the fact that these guys have put together 4 out of the last 5 games and have gone wire to wire and given this team everything they needed.
All right, so this is interesting as well. This is from Jake Trotter, ESPN. Browns trailed for 59 minutes, 20 seconds Sunday. No NFL team this millennium has won a game trailing for that long in a game per ESPN stats and info. Myles Garrett, postgame, talked about the comeback and what he has seen from Deshaun Watson.
Guy's a dog, and we've known that for a long time now. And kept on trying to tell y'all, once he hits his stride, he's going to be back to his previous ways, dominating the league, hitting spots, running down the field, and we're just seeing another glimpse into what he can be and who he is, and I think he's going to continue to carry that momentum throughout the season because he's special.
Miles, what does it say about this team to not only fall behind by 14 a couple times, but come back with a lot of kind of reserves playing for you? You had Mike Ford out there, the offense had backup tackles, and still get it done here.
It means we got to start playing better in the fourth quarter. Got to stop making it so easy for them to get ahead. So spotting guys' points, trying to make it harder on ourselves. But that's a hell of a team here in Baltimore, and they came out, made a huge defensive play, counted with that momentum that they had, and made a big offensive string of plays. And no one ducked their head, no one shied away from the moment. We have been here before, and we knew exactly how to fight back into this game, and everybody was relentless in their work ethic and their playmaking.
Yeah, Jeff, and there were a couple of times the botched punt was one. They just kept coming, and I mean, think about the mental toughness to come back. You haven't led all game. They led when he kicked the field goal to win the game with no time left. That's the first time they led.
Well, first things first, it's all about when the final gun goes off. So, and hey, but maybe that was the motivation this team needed. And I know the Browns knew for a fact that they did not walk out of there with a W yesterday. At least their chances for the AFC North were over. Pretty much could have maybe been a clear path where there was going to be nobody else to win the AFC North but the Baltimore Ravens. Look, the Ravens had a really, really nice hot streak. But, you look at some of their losses. Obviously, they lost at Pittsburgh. And if you want to talk about a team with the true definition of just absolutely winning ugly, that is the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. Their other game, it was fourth quarter against Gardner Minshew. It all fell apart, and they ended up losing at home to the Indianapolis Colts. So, look, it's not like we live in this world in the NFL where no teams are not beatable. We thought this about the San Francisco 49ers, who then went out and lost to the Cleveland Browns and lost the subsequent 2 games afterwards. If you go out there and you play the best version of yourself, best version of what your team is, in the NFL, you should have a good chance to compete, if not win. And right now, this Browns product, everybody believes it. Everybody in that locker room believes each other. And, my biggest probably takeaway was, after the Greg Newsome pick six and Dustin Hopkins missing the extra point, as he was walking on the sidelines, you saw basically every prominent defensive player come right over to him, shake his hand, tap him on the head, and basically tell him, don't worry about it, man. We're going to get you another shot. Don't you worry about that. And they went out there. They played hard. They got the ball back. Obviously, Deshaun did his thing with David Njoku, Amari Cooper, Deshaun with his legs. The Jerome Ford run that felt like you had probably – it literally felt like, one of the most important people in Cleveland had a flat tire, and the people of the city basically just got behind it and said, we'll push the car the rest of the way home. But that is what unity is about, and I think this team is truly, truly starting to believe in each other, and they are a greatly, greatly talented bunch. But there's been bunches of teams in the NFL in history past with a ton of talent. But if you don't have that team concept, and it does seem a little bit corny in 2023, but you have to have a locker room full of guys that can look at each other in the eye and say, you know what, man, I know I got your back. I know you got mine. And I really, really think that's the biggest takeaway from this team yesterday, down 24-9 at one point, and then basically just told the Baltimore Ravens, this day's over for you guys. We're going to take this and we're going to take it home.
All right, so here are some milestones that happened in that game. Elijah Moore catches his first touchdown as a Brown. Mike Ford, first career interception. Greg Newsome, first career interception. It's a pick six. Watson, first divisional road win as a Brown. Now, hasn't played that many. Ford, career high in rushing. Stefanski, first win in Baltimore. Those are some pretty important boxes to check.
No question, and I know there had been some jabbering between Greg Newsome and Martin Emerson. Both came into the season with no interceptions. Martin Emerson with 2. Obviously, Greg Newsome now can have the last laugh because he got his first, and actually it turned out to be a pick six that obviously just changed the whole entire momentum of the game. For Coach Stefanski, Baltimore isn't like it's that difficult place to play in. There's other places, where the noise holds better and things like that, but it's always been its own house of horrors for Coach Stefanski. For me, I'm going to take the most impressive one. Jerome Ford's on a pace for 1,000 yards. As difficult as the loss of Nick Chubb was, and as talented as Nick Chubb was, Jerome Ford, and there's times where you almost think like there's somebody preaching to him, be more patient, where there's somebody preaching to a man, there's the whole just go. And I think Jerome Ford yesterday just did what he did. He said, look, if I see daylight, I'm going 100 million miles an hour. Obviously, the late run was really, really impressive, but the one early, he was in the middle of the line of scrimmage. There was a guy around his waist. He spun out of it, got to the outside, stiff arm. It was a run for 27 yards, and he just really, really brought it yesterday. And for a guy like Jerome Ford, obviously, probably got drafted originally by the Browns and said, well, this is terrible. They have Nick Chubb. They have Kareem Hunt. They have Dearness Johnson. And now here we are probably, 17, 18 months later after he was originally drafted by this team, and he is this team's lead running back. And he's doing a really, really good job with it. And those yards he got yesterday, every one of them mattered. He obviously had a big reception on a 3rd and 2 late in the game, too. That was a huge, huge part of that game as well. But for a guy like Jerome Ford, who originally got here and had no idea what his role would be or where his path to playing time was, now with that opportunity, the kid is shining.
Jeff Lloyd from the Lockdown Browns podcast and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
An Ohio lottery machine. The holiday scratch-offs are worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Non-winning tickets have a second chance. Is that Marion Bright? The first ever $1 million holiday game! Hello? You can get them now?
I'm gonna go ask if I can play.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE with Jeff Lloyd from the Lockdown Browns podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, guys, what a game. It's a great win. Typical Myles Garrett MVP play and defense when it mattered most. I got to give some kudos to Deshaun Watson, the second half play. Darius Smith had the best game I've seen him play. Jerome Ford gave it all. He's the tank. And Stefanski showing fire and emotion on the sideline. The Browns are finally learning what it takes to win, playing every second of every down hard. And we got the skill players to make up for mistakes when they do make them. Browns were the bullies in the Ravens' house. Go Browns!
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Jeff, I think it comes down to the quarterback. They have the quarterback, they feel, that can make up for. So you're willing to take some more risks, and with risk come reward.
Everybody talked about it last week, and a lot of people poo-pooed it. The whole point of Deshaun Watson is when you get in games with some of the best teams in the AFC or the NFL overall, you want a quarterback that can play on the magnitude of the guy across from him. Lamar Jackson is one of those guys. Lamar Jackson absolutely dominated the first half. Deshaun Watson struggled. Deshaun Watson came out in the second half, obviously 14 of 14, 134 yards, a touchdown, made plays with his legs. The Browns defense got tighter and tighter on Lamar Jackson as that second half went on. There were times where, Jim Schwartz wasn't even rushing defensive tackles. He put all his edges out there, trying to get as much athleticism on the field as possible, understanding that they're still not going to match athleticism with Lamar Jackson, but anything he could to make Lamar Jackson be forced, to pick up his pace, so to speak, and it certainly paid dividends. They held Lamar to one completion in the fourth quarter, got a lot of hits on Lamar Jackson late in the game when it mattered. This team really is starting to find its groove now, but for Deshaun Watson, that was much needed. And look, the critiques in the halftime, and people were all over his play, and I guess understandably so, even though the game was only 17-9 at the half. He came out in the second half, played, basically flawless. And, now you start turning your eyes towards yet another big division game, this Sunday coming up. But the Browns are trying to, right some of these revenges that they were on the wrong side of early in the season. Step one down, step two to come Sunday.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Deshaun Watson did that with a heavily taped ankle. Hopefully that MRI that is coming back tomorrow comes back okay. All right, this from Jake Burns from the Orange and Brown Report. Take a look at this one. This is interesting. Browns run game in Week 10. Under center, 12 carries, 31 yards, 2.6 yards per carry. Shotgun, 24 carries, 147 yards, 6.1 yards per carry. This goes back to, and again, that's without your first, second, and third tackles. You were on your fourth and fifth tackles. It goes back to Kevin Stefanski finding a scheme that works with Bill Callahan to run the football.
Well, I think it's also more importantly about finding out what works best with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson just preferably prefers to play from the shotgun. It doesn't mean he won't play under center, but if that is what the guy is comfortable with, you've got to adapt what you do to what he does best. And, there was talks about this, and obviously we didn't get to see enough of it this year, but this was going to be something where Nick Chubb was going to have to make a change as well. And Nick Chubb, very talented player, obviously coveted player by the Browns. But you want all 11 pieces on offense to be working in unison. If Deshaun is more comfortable from the gun, let's find a way to make it work. Jerome Ford, obviously, from Cincinnati in college, almost everybody does gun all the time. So it's not that big of a stretch that Jerome Ford finds, being a little bit more comfortable running from the shotgun formation. I don't think that's going to be the base. Is it something they're going to play more often than not? Most likely. And the other thing is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But it's just finding a way where you can get everybody on the field and hopefully try to say, all right, well, he does this well, he does this well. Okay, well, that works. You know what? He doesn't do this. All right, well, we can do that. But that's when he's going to get a blow, like the Elijah Moore stuff that they were trying to do early in the year. Elijah Moore's touchdown reception. Everybody had so many issues with Elijah Moore out of the backfield because it wasn't getting anything done. Let's all be honest. But Elijah Moore's touchdown yesterday, Elijah Moore was lined up in the backfield and just kind of scuttered off to the flat, saw that there was nobody behind him, and just kind of steps a little more separation. They came up on Deshaun because they thought he might run. Boom, touchdown to Elijah Moore. It's still a work in progress on the offensive side of the ball, and some of that has to be, of the belief that, Deshaun, of course, missing time during the season. There are certain things you're going to do with P.J. Walker and DTR that you're not even going to, you're going to keep it simple. You're not going to try a lot of the stuff that you're going to do with Deshaun with them. You want to do what's easiest for them. But the Browns now, and this could be an advantage for them, is because, now they are starting to roll out different guys with Deshaun that weren't supposed to originally be the game plan, over the spring, over the summer. Obviously, Cedric Tillman is getting more time. Donovan Peoples-Jones is gone. Unfortunately, Nick Chubb isn't part of the fold. Kareem Hunt, when they do go from under center, that's usually the carries that Kareem Hunt gets. So they're finding a way to get him in there, and he obviously comes in with a battering ram running style. So this could be something that could be advantageous for the Browns over the next couple of weeks because there's still stuff they would like to implement. And obviously, Deshaun, the limited availability between weeks 4 and I guess week 8, obviously really, really hindered that. And now they can start to up it again. Plus, with Deshaun playing so well, you want to put more on his plate. You want to keep him stimulated.
All right, before I let you go, how do you get a win against the Steelers in Cleveland?
Don't let them score 2 touchdowns on defense. Look, the Pittsburgh Steelers cannot throw the ball. And I'll tell you right now, they are not going to run for 205 yards on the Cleveland Browns like they just did to the Green Bay Packers. The other thing is, this game is in Cleveland. It is not in Pittsburgh. If I'm Pittsburgh, this is a really, really tough game for them because they're coming right now, and obviously the Browns are clicking on all cylinders. The Browns maybe get DeJuan Jones back this week. Not nearly enough lip service given to what Hudson and Christian did yesterday. It's not about PFF grades. It's not about any of that. It's about 2 guys were thrown into the fire against a top-notch defense in the NFL, and somehow they were contributing factors in the Cleveland Browns offense being better than the Baltimore Ravens in a big, big game. But, Steelers, I'll say it now, I'm not sure how. This shouldn't even be a game, but again, it shouldn't have been a game week 2 like it was, and it certainly shouldn't have been a week 2 loss like it was. That's why you got to play all 60 minutes.
Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns podcast, as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
All the best, Dave. We'll talk soon.
Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him out. Locked On Browns podcast, really good Browns coverage. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.